Today we're going to be reviewing my first ever short film, Routine. So let's jump into it. Routine was made back in 2018, and this is what I would consider my first short film. My sister Rachel and I were kind of going through a very similar experience of relationships that had recently ended and sort of processing that at the same time. As creatives, I think that especially when you're experiencing a emotion that you don't quite fully understand, I think the thing that you want to do is recreate it, revisit it, explore it, and turn it into art. And so, this idea very much came like within that shared season that we were having. I'd made videos before, but Routine was probably the first film where I actually started with an intention of telling a story, trying to elicit a certain response from the audience. This was like, all right, I'm going to set out and I'm going to make a short film. So yeah, let's start watching.
Hey Rachel, it's Kevin. Just wanted to give you a call. I had this idea for a video project I kind of wanted to run by you, see if you're interested in. Kind of thinking about just breakups, obviously, recently, and wanted to try it and maybe capture a younger woman who's recently gone through a breakup and is kind of not so much mourning the breakup, but just suddenly kind of aware of that lack of person and just kind of her processing that.
Originally, when I was editing it, it changed a lot. You know, we sort of scripted this thing where the conversation just jumps in as though I'm just calling her and hearing about the breakup. But I think there's something maybe even a little bit more meta about saying like, hey, I want to make a video about this. And so I think it sort of puts the viewer in the mindset that this is a true story in a sense. I think both of us were going through these emotions and processing it and kind of inviting the viewer in to say, hey, this isn't just a scripted thing. This is two people, real people conversing about what it means to process loss. At this point, you know, I think it's been long enough in the relationship since the relationships ended that both of us could pretty much clearly see like, okay, I think these breakups were for the best. You know, I think we're better for it. I think, you know, we're moving on, not the right fit. There's still a physical response though of missing that person, missing that place. Yeah, this first point here, this first dialogue is really just to invite the audience into saying like, this is a true story. We want to invite you into this space that we're sort of opening up and exploring and trying to visit. Yeah.
Wanted to try it and maybe capture a younger woman who's recently gone through a breakup. And
I like these like little glimpses that we're getting on the screen here. And so you don't really get this full picture. We don't get this zoomed out objective view of what the character is going through. Instead, we get these sort of vignettes, these small moments. And I think sometimes, especially when you're in these sort of deep emotional spaces, you really start to focus on these like minute details around your life and start putting meaning to them of like, there's this girl in the corner that you see in this frame that's just raising her arms out. And it's almost this like cry, like, I want to feel this way, you know, but it's just out of frame, you know. And then you have this other shot on the far here where it's like the world is far too serious not to laugh at it. It's interesting because these textures, these vignettes are saying like, hey, life is good. I'm ready to laugh. I'm ready to love. But the reality that this character is experiencing is opposite of that, you know? And so there's this real disconnect between the desire to move on, to start embracing life, to feel joy, to feel celebration, to just embrace life for the beauty that it is, and the actual feeling of what's going on inside, which is disconnect and fatigue and loss. Yeah. And so, yeah, so we're sort of just setting that space.
I have this shitty calendar by my bed, and you can look over the last 6 months, and there's like scribbles on days that were like, this was a good day, this was a bad day, this was the day I fucked up, and you know, it's all this stuff of just like, and each day it's just been like, well, I just got through another one, like hitting on.
Forgive. I just want to comment on the song. I think the song was found very early on. I've always had this process of making playlists for each season. So if you go on my Spotify, there's literally a playlist for every season going back to like 2012 when I first got it. So you have like spring 2012, you know, fall 2012, and so on and so forth. And it's kind of fun. You can jump into any specific season of that year and just get a gauge on where I was at emotionally. And 2018, this song I think made it into multiple playlists because I just kept listening to it over and over and over again. And I'm the type of person that doesn't always listen to the words. I just kind of get, captured in the emotion that the song, the sound is making. Before I really even knew what the song was about, like there was this sensation that it really captured, which is just this routine. And you have this sort of plucking on the guitar that's repeated over and over and over. And there's these heights of longing that kind of come in later in the song, and these cavernous, like quiet, mournful moments. And I think this song really captured just the emotional journey that someone might be in. Like, I get up, I check my calendar, I put my feet on the floor, and I start my day. There is this hope that each day it gets a little bit easier. Each day, it's not so difficult to just cross out the X on the day, put your feet on the ground, and hopefully it gets a little bit more joyful and a little bit easier.
It's not glamorous. This idea that people are like, I just hopped in the car and I drove out and, I took a road trip and then I went to Bali and met a lover and now I'm so good. It's like, that's not what happened. I mean, maybe.
Still I try to stay.
This is a good sequence of sort of starting to include the audience into what's going on. We start to see there's 2 cups, that there's 2 plates, there's 2 forks, 2 knives, and it almost feels like a life that's curated for 2. In this next scene here,
Just from my short experience, but like at some point in my life, whether I choose to ignore it.
Yeah, right here, just you have this scene where there's this other chair, and the way that the framing was kind of working in this sequence was meant to sort of create space for the person that wasn't there. And so throughout the film, we have these shots that are set up as sort of like, okay, I'm grabbing one of the cups, the other one's not in use. I'm grabbing one of the plates, the other one's not in use. I'm grabbing a set of the forks and knives, and the others won't go used. And finally, to arrive at this place where I think she makes this really lovely meal, these eggs and toast and coffee. And what I think is a really lovely setting here, we're in San Francisco, and really beautiful natural light just sort of spilling into the apartment with these beautiful flowers and sort of a woman that's surrounded herself in beauty and really going through the steps of having a really lovely morning that would be on any other day in any other season really enjoyable and pleasurable. But because of the season that this specific character is in, there's this missing person, this missing space, this open space that's sort of just lingering in every shot, the 2 eggs, the 2 plates, and so on and so forth. And so, but also you kind of go back and we're really focusing on a lot of details here too. Like we were saying before, you start to just feel everything. And I think it's both sad and heartbreaking, but also really beautiful in the sense of I believe that sadness also allows us to really seek out beauty as sort of maybe just compensating or trying to understand loss is looking for and expressing things that are beautiful. And so I don't know why those 2 things are always just attached to my head. When things are difficult and when you're in a space of somber sadness, loss, mourning, it feels like the things that are beautiful in your life seem to sort of sharpen and come into focus. And everything else just sort of fades into the background, it feels like. So that's sort of the emotion that we were trying to elicit in a lot of these shots. You see that shallow focus and just really focusing on the softness and the texture and just the vulnerability of these moments. So, yeah.
Or hide away from it. Or
At some point you have to deal with it. Yeah.
It's just that. How do you process pain? How do you work through it? What avenues are good and bad? Is it justifiable to take off months of your life to get over a breakup? No. Is it okay to just get drunk every night and date a bunch of people in an open norm? No.
When we first filmed this, I drove out to her place and we sat down and just sat at her kitchen table, and we weren't really sure what exactly the film looked like yet. This was before I was really into like storyboarding and shot lists and all that. This was just like, what is it that we want to convey in this film? And so we sat down and I had like a little H1 recorder I just put down on the table, and we just recorded the conversation. So all of the conversation we were having, all of this dialogue is just me just pressing record on a little recorder at the time and just taking in what it is we were feeling at that time. And so these are all things that we sort of were struggling with. Like, what does it look like to do this well? And I think both of us probably have a history of like, I'm feeling bad. I need to just go out of the world and be destructive as a way of processing my emotions. And it only just creates this like worse experience for yourself, because now you're like sad and like a little guilty, a little ashamed of your behavior. And so I think that in this, we were really looking for like, what is the right way to do this? So in the conversation we're having right now, we talked about a lot of personal things, like a lot of things that we were intimately struggling with and that were very vulnerable things, and kind of scared me. And so when the first edit of this film, and actually up until this year, like I drowned out the audio. Like I completely drowned it out with the music, and I made it really muffled and really like hard to hear. You get this like inkling that they're talking about something that's intimate and sad, but you never actually hear what they're saying. And it was this sort of distance that I created between like the character and what they're experiencing and the viewer and what the viewer is experiencing. And this is something that I kind of had to learn over time, but we re-released the film. It's on YouTube. Obviously, we're watching it now with that audio clarified and with subtitles, so that you as the viewer actually get to be invited into the story. Early on, it's really easy to be scared of the emotions that you're wanting to talk about, and scared you're going to be mocked at, scared someone won't understand it, someone was going to say something really mean. And that's always true. There's always this risk as a creative that like what you're doing artistically, people just won't understand. My response to that early on was just, well, I'll hide the reality of it from the audience. Over time, I think what's really impactful is when you open up that door and you let people in. And I think that, yes, the audio definitely changed over time. So earlier on, there was a lot of serious things that we were talking about that were private and that ended up getting cut from the final script. And in this latest version, I really wanted to focus on what's the heart and the meaning behind what we're saying, as opposed to just saying things that really just didn't fit into the larger story. But yeah, that clarity I think was a really important like note for my, self in the editing. If there's something you're trying to communicate as a creative, as a filmmaker, like to make sure it's said, make sure it's heard, make sure it's understood, and then giving people the opportunity to either accept it or reject it. That's on them. But I think as creatives, it's like our heart, it's our want, I think, more than anything, is to be seen. And when we create something that is eliciting a specific emotion, and that emotion, even to a small audience, is felt. So that was a real shift in my view of how to edit this and what to put forward.
Date a bunch of people like in a like, but the right way to do it is boring. It sucks, and it's you alone in your bedroom working through each thing and kind of putting to rest each memory and putting to rest like each desire. And
That's not actually really how it works.
it is, I'm stuck on that word, and just the monotony of it. It's toils.
Yeah.
It's work. It's not enjoyable.
Yeah, it was funny. The film is almost called Monotony. Routine beat it out. A little more romantic, I think. But that, I think, is the heart of the film. One thing I've learned over time in what to convey as a filmmaker, as an artist, and that is audiences are more intelligent. When you've brought them into a story, I think they'll put up with a lot of like faults and bad edits in production and stuff like that, as long as at one point in the film you say the thing that you're trying to say, and you say it clear, and you say it loud, and you say it proud, and it's out there. You go back to any one of your favorite films, and there's always a memory of like, oh yeah, that film was so good. I loved that moment when, X. And so it's strange. I mean, I think the ending of this film is probably my personal favorite, but I think the message that's being conveyed is this last scene here in the bathroom of just, it's not fun. It's toilsome. It's work. And it's great that she's just brushing her teeth while we're doing this, nothing really exciting or intense. That's the other thing too, is just when it comes to editing, you don't want the loudest point in the film to be where the message sits, because a great example, I can't believe I'm bringing this up right now, is a bad example of doing this. Wonder Woman, I think the first one, when she's fighting Ares, it's in the middle of the climax. It's big. We're fighting. We're in the energy, the excitement of the fight. Everything's going on. And then all of a sudden she's just like, it's love, And as an audience member, like, wait, what? Why are we like shoehorning a moral right into the middle of this action sequence? And I think it feels a little disconnected, because in the moment, in the moment of the loudness, of the chaos, of the emotion, you're not in a place of reflecting either as a character, like realistically, or as an audience member. You're not necessarily there to really listen, to any morals. You just want to see how things play out. I could be wrong about this, but my personal practice is like, put your message in that quiet moment before or after the climax and let it sit with the audience. Give them some time to just sit with it. And then as this sort of wraps up, we go into the climax, which is, this next scene.
It's work. It's not
No substitute for time. And sometimes it really is just like, got through another one. Got through another one.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird. Like, it's strange just still feeling that. There's something about the way that this was edited that was sort of an accident. I think when you are editing your film, and sometimes it's about just like, okay, I'm going to throw out the book of what I need to do and just sort of just feel this out, just edit intuitively. Something about the swelling of this song and then having it just cut out immediately as all of a sudden we're in that moment of her reaching. It almost feels like she's holding her breath, like she's afraid to let out the real feeling that's behind that breath. It was something that just sort of worked. And once I, kind of cut it together and saw it for the first time, I was like, I don't want to change anything about this. This is good. This hits and I feel it. And if nothing else worked in the film, I hope that you felt it too. Yeah, just that absence. Just to show that scene one more time, like, I think the feeling that we're going for here is as she puts away just this memorabilia of the relationship and kind of putting it away, like, okay, I did my thing. I didn't do anything crazy. So I'm almost ready for bed. And I just want like a little treat. And that's just to like revisit some of the highlights of the relationship and just let yourself be allowed to feel what it is you miss. To live in that is tough, because when you're living in the constant reminiscing, you almost like inflate the relationship and you stop seeing all the faults. You just see what you miss, and then you're calling them, and then things are messy and blah, blah, blah. What we're trying to show is restrained reminiscing of like, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes. I'm going to look at the photos. I'm going to, take this moment to just appreciate what was good about the relationship, but I don't want to ruminate in that. But, as you crawl into bed, there's this moment and you feel the camera was just on a slider as it's pushing closer to her. And you just want to go to sleep so fast because it's coming. And it's the feeling of just like that sadness, that missing them. She reaches back and she touches her neck almost as though it is coming behind her. And so you see that in the next shot. Feeling sort of sweeps over her, and it's just the reminder that that pillow next to her is empty, and she reaches out. And and just that moment of memory. And then we end it. The end. This was very much, we go to the credits here, written, directed by me, and starred by Rachel. Very short credits here. And it really was just like, me taking my camera and my audio equipment to my sister's house, and we just really, it was like, okay, this is the idea. We sat down and we like planned it all out over breakfast and had some coffee, and then we just pressed record, and we had this sort of vision, and we just wanted to like follow through with it. And I think this film has taken a long time to sort of arrive in its own skin. I think there's been a lot of different edits of it over the years, but I'm really happy to where it's ended and how it's come together for sure. So yeah, thank you for watching it. Absolutely. Hopefully you learned some stuff about filmmaking and just the process as a creative of what it means to like approach these stories and how they're put together. And yeah, if you liked any of this, give the video a like, as we always say. Subscribe if you want to see more. We'll be doing more just film reviews in the coming future. So in the meantime, thank you.